An unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Having it to see and listen to, remember and accept, I vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata's teachings. In Buddhism, when Zen practitioners share their understandings of the teachings and practice, it's offered on the basis of dana paramita. Dana is a Pali word that means generosity or to give freely, and this is done without the expectation of anything in return when the opportunity arises. And those who share their teachings at Great Tree do so on a dana basis. Please support their practice by giving what you can. You can go to greattreetemple.org, hit the support button, and just write in the notes section, just write Chimyo's name, and we'll make sure it gets to her. Chimyo has stepped away for a minute. I also just wanted to mention that nobody is in person or at the temple today. It's children's retreat, so the temple's full of children. So I think they're busy doing their own things today. So, but our speaker today is Reverend Chimyo Atkinson. Ryuju Chimyo means tree of prosperity, clear wisdom. Reverend Chimyo was ordained by Reverend Teijo Munnich in 2007 and received Dharma Transmission in 2015. She received monastic training at Great Tree and completed 2 Sotoshu International training periods in Japan in 2010 and 2011, 2 additional angos at Aichi Senmon Nisodo in Nagoya in 2012, and 1 ango at Ryumonji Monastery in Iowa in 2014. Chimyo served as head of practice at Great Tree Zen and volunteered with the Sangha at Avery-Mitchell Correctional Institute until 2020. And now she practices in Brooklyn. Welcome, Chimyo.
Good morning. Thank you. I hope you can hear me clearly. Let me just close one more door here. Please excuse me. And good morning. I'm glad you all could be here. I hope I'm here in New York and the summer is coming in blazing. So I hope you all are able to find shade, cool spaces, and take care of yourselves. Let's see. I never know what I'm going to talk about. I really frustrate Quinn and Randall when it comes to, giving a title for the flyer. They ought to be used to me by now, but, well, today, what has been on my mind for a while has been the question of the temple and the Sangha. And I call it a question because in the United States anyway, and I think for most places in the West, including Europe, the question of what that means, what it means to be a temple, what it means to be a Sangha, is still being answered. It's sort of still brand new for this culture to be a temple in the Buddhist sense, to be a Sangha, a community in that sense, and what it means. There are so many things that, if you look at the Buddhist literature, Buddhist philosophies, forms of Buddhism, particularly when, we compare our lifestyle to some Asian cultures, are in direct contradiction to what we consider normal in our world. I don't know whether it's good or bad, it doesn't matter, but it's something that I always question and think about. I think about what it means to be a practitioner of Zen in this world, uh, for myself mainly, and what it means if I share that existence with others in this world. This 2 weeks. Last Sunday, I participated in an ordination here in New York of a woman, I haven't known her long, from Europe, who came all the way here to ordain with a teacher here in New York. Tomorrow, the next Sunday, bang, bang, I'm participating in another ordination of a young woman from here in New York. Again, I haven't known her very long. We've been in conversation for a few years now. And, she's decided to ordain, and that's happening tomorrow. And it's wonderful. I am so very glad for both of them and hopeful for both of them because of what I believe they can contribute, and they do contribute, robed or unrobed, to this community, to this world in general, to the Mahasangha. But what does it mean? Do they have to be priests? What's a priest? Says she. Do we know? And it's questions that I think we need to address more directly. We have this idea that in spirituality, you're not really doing it if you got all these questions. That's a very Protestant Western sort of deal in this culture. And having grown up in the time and place that I've grown up, some of that's there, At the same time, what is Zen? What is it that that Shakyamuni Buddha left us? A whole bunch of questions. How this whole of this path is asking the question, is that so? Every time we walk a path, it's not standing still. We're not standing still, even though we're sitting motionless, some of us, on a cushion during this practice. We're still on the path. There's a step taken into freedom. That's what freedom is. But I won't go into that. So let me start. I came to this practice as a layperson, as most people do. You're not born, as that monk who, suddenly stood up and, the robes, magically appeared. None of us are born priests. Exactly. But I began, as you do, as a person seeking, a person, part of the Mahasangha, one of the 4 parts of the Mahasangha, the lay person, the lay woman, lay person. And one of the things that keeps coming up, and it's kind of cute, I asked Teijo about ordination pretty early in my practice. I knew what I was talking about. Not a bit. I had this idea. And also this, it's an idea of something you put on and you get changed. At least that's kind of how it felt in my head. There's also this idea that of escape. And I will totally admit that. There was an idea of escape from the Saha world, the madness of samsara. That does not happen just because you ordain. Let me just tell you. It does not happen. That is not what happens when a person ordains. It's not what happens whether you ordain or not. It's not what happens. There is no escape. There's only liberation. And liberation does not mean the chains drop off and yay. No. Liberation is a whole lot of work. You can take a look at, we're just coming up to Juneteenth here. And if y'all know what that is, the emancipation, celebration of the emancipation of and the abolition of slavery in the United States. Yeah, that happened. Look how hard we're still working. Liberation, and that I'm not just talking about the liberation of African people in this country. I'm talking about the liberation of both the enslaved and the enslaver, the oppressed and the oppressor. However you put it, there are no two sides to that. I told when I first started that there is no difference between the practice of a lay person and a priest. We know what a priest looks like. We kind of know what we look like, trotting into the Zen center and sitting down and putting our rock shoes on if we've gotten to that point, or participating in a session, what some people call retreats. It's not a retreat, y'all. Stop. I'm going to stop being pedantic about that. But in the absolute, it is true. There is no real difference between the practice of a layperson and the practice of a priest. I come in and I sit down with my bald head and my robes. And then you come in and sit, if this is you come in and sit down, still got your Carhartts on, maybe your work uniform, maybe you had just enough time to switch out of that suit that you were walking around in corporate, whatever it is, and sit down next to the robes. And what's happening is not two different things. What's happening is, and I say happening, is one thing. We sit on the cushion and we drop body and mind, which means dropping identity, which means dropping the career, whatever skill it is we're being paid for, dropping idea of priest, and dropping body and mind in an effort towards liberation, not just for my robed self, not just for her unrobed self, but for all beings. That is exactly the same. That is happening. That is practice for all of us, regardless of your choice of clothing. You know, what difference? I don't know. My clothing choice indicates that I have left home, and that is what it's called in Japanese, shuke tokuro, to leave home when you ordain. And in that, it means that I, quote, leave the Saha world. I accept boundaries of the monastery. I accept the container of the monastery and the monastic life. However, that's what my robes mean. That's what that symbolizes. And it's a symbol. It doesn't mean that that's exactly what's happening, exactly. No, it doesn't. You know, we put a whole lot into symbolism, and without really paying attention to what really might be happening. You know, but for most people, priests are human beings. You know, I live in this world just like you do. Teijo lives in this world just like you do. But what we've done, and what a person does when you ordain, as I say, you decide to, in a sense, in a little bit of a sense, remove oneself from the worldly, the worldliness, and that's not easy. It's difficult. It's not easy even to approach that possibility, that decision, or step into it. I'm not saying that it's easy, but it is a little bit of an out, a little bit of a cop. And it's much easier than remaining in the world, being a non-home leaver, being a layperson. In lay practice, and don't forget, I experience this for really a good, half of the time that I was practicing this, is to try to walk the Eightfold Path, try to do practice, try to develop the concentration, the generosity, the empathy, the magnanimity that practice talks about, that Buddhism in general talks about, not just Zen, while still in it, while still feeling those pressures, while trying to feed your children, trying to pay the rent and all the other bills, trying to maintain a place in your community, in your society, all of the things that every living, breathing human being has to worry about. Trying to get to the daycare on time, getting that car fixed, all of those things. That's hard. That's hard, especially when in a society like ours, which is just that says that there's a great importance of certain things, certain ideas, and pressures to maintain those things. Totally, seemingly, the opposite of Zazen. Dropping body and mind, dropping identity, dropping likes and dislikes, dropping goals for goallessness, being not unattached. But I do not like that translation of that. I really wish you could find something else to say. How are you not attached to your child, to your parent, even to your co-workers, to your creation? How do you, and what is really confusing about that whole concept that we've made a concept is not how can you, we can talk about non-attachment, but we also talk about compassion and generosity and kindness and all of these things that indicate how can we not care and practice in that way. So there's a translation issue, I think, there, a concept issue there. But yeah, all that really hard to do if you got to get up every morning and get out there and hustle, because that's the only way that those things can happen in this community, in this society. A lot easier for me to get up and say, the bell rang. Oh, let me go. Oh, the bell rang again. I'm going to eat. I don't even have to decide what I got to eat. I don't have to decide what I'm going to wear today because I'm wearing the same thing I wore yesterday. You know, I don't have to worry about, I don't have to go to the hair salon. I don't need a haircut. You know, get the razor. How easy is that compared to what we have to do when not in the monastery? So, and I've always said this, the practice, lay practice, is a heck of a lot more challenging, a lot harder than monastic practice. Monastic practice can be uncomfortable. It can be, irritating, you know. It can be boring. And all of those things, are what they are because ego and all that. But I only have to deal with my silly ego. I've never had to deal with a sick child of my own. I have never had to watch somebody repo my car. And I'm not laughing, because I think it's funny. I'm laughing because of how, that's my way of dealing with pain. Sorry. But understanding how painful those things can be. And there's a space where non-attachment, the practice of non-attachment can work for us in those situations. But it's not easy when, that is how your life works. You have to have certain things for your life to work. Whereas I'm sitting in a monastery and I don't have to go anywhere. So, yeah, the difference between lay life and priest life. Fundamentally, in the absolute, in the relative, in the practical, yeah, y'all got it rough. We all do. I think, one choice is not better than the other. It isn't possible or necessary for everybody to become priest. It is possible for anyone to practice the Dharma and be liberated. That is the truth of Shakyamuni Buddha. That's why we're here. It is absolutely possible in either way. But one of the things I think we really, really need to look at in our culture is lay practice. Because in America, at least, most of the people practicing in Zen communities are lay people. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And there are some very dedicated, very important lay people, lay teachers, and define a lay teacher, will you? Please, let's do that. Who are out there maintaining and helping to spread the Dharma, helping to teach the Dharma. That needs to be recognized. It's very important. One of the things it's very different from traditional Japanese Zen practice, I'll say, because that's the only one that I really know. Here we have what we call lay Sangha. And most of the time, I think, a lot of those lay Sanghas kind of arise from a group of people who have discovered individually or through some connections or whatever, Zazen, and want to share that with others. And so we get lay sitting groups. I began with a lay sitting group in Charlotte. Y'all might know them. Yeah. Zen Center, not Zen Center, Charlotte Zen Meditation Society, ZCMS. You'll see them around, mentioned in some of Great Tree's literature. A group of people got together, rented a space once a week, bought some cushions, set up a little altar, and sat together. Maybe had book discussions together. And that was the group. It was, just as legitimate as any other practice anywhere. And we did not, for a while, we did not have a leader. But we did have leaders. We had folks that took care of making the arrangements, collected the dues, talked to the landlord, collected money to buy new cushions, all of that. But we did not have a traditional priestly ordained leader until we met Teijo. And she became that for that group. And out of that grew a lot of different things, Z.C. Hay was around at the same time. It was, kind of, they were at the same time, growing at the same time. Group up in Nashville. So out of that grew Great Tree. And I'm not going to go into all that history, but yeah. There are other organizations. You can think of San Francisco Zen Center that grew out of a existing priest in a different community, or a ethnic community, Suzuki Roshi. And out of that comes Zen Center, San Francisco Zen Center, and Tassajara and all of that. They grow from that in different ways. But however the Dharma group forms, sometimes the practice or the practice form remains kind of informal. For years and years and years, that group of people, lay people, sit together. And is that a temple? Would we define it as a temple? In a sense, yes. It may not be a formal thing, but what is it? It's still something that has to be taken care of. It's still a Sangha that needs to take care of each other, a group of people. When we sit together, whether we have a priest, whether it looks all temple-y or not, whether it's just somebody's living room, when we sit together, we are caring for each other in practice. We're showing up for each other in practice. And the temple? Why is it not? And I'm not talking about temple in terms of, a robe or whatever. What I mean is something that's more than that building. Something that needs to be cared for, whether there's a porch to sweep or not. Either way, whether it is a group sitting in someone's living room, or whether it's a group sitting in the Zendo at Great Tree, this gathering has to take responsibility for the practice, and not just their practice. I don't know if some of you may have seen the talk by Cone Franz, Reverend Franz, a few weeks ago. It's been a while. And he was trying to talk about or give some information about the SZNA. And one of the things he brought up, which is very important, is the Mahasangha, with the understanding that, we all sit together. When we're sitting in someone's living room, in Ohio, or Houston, or he's up in Nova Scotia, wherever we're sitting, we are sitting with the whole Sangha, which is each other, whether we can see each other or not, whether we know each other or not. We are sitting together. We are taking care of the Dharma together. Whether you're sitting on Tuesday night and I'm sitting on Saturday, we are sitting together in holding this practice. Whether we are sitting, in 1966 or 2026, or Lord, let us help that we get there, 2136, we are sitting together. And really understanding and knowing that. That's why it's important. That's why that responsibility that we take to show up, whatever the zendo looks like, is important. That is the Dharma. And taking care of the practice, yes. In the sense of the Mahasangha, yes. And in order to do that, we gotta do the work. And that work means setting out the cushions. It means scheduling the meetings, collecting the dues, setting up and breaking down at events. It's sweeping the porch. It's, oh my God, board meetings. Oh my God. Yeah, board meetings. All of that is caring for the Sangha and needs to be taken seriously and appreciated. And all that work, no matter who does it, whether it's a priest or your Sangha brother and sister, we cherish that. We not just expect it, not, but do not take it, take advantage. I mean, just know how generous, how kind, how important that is, and how it holds all of us when it's done for us, when we do it for others. In Japan, it's very different from Japan in a sense, but it's the same thing. In Japan, they don't call it the Sangha so much. It is the Sangha. They do call it the Sangha. But for individual temples, there's a group. The community is often referred to as the Danka. And those are the people in the community who are attached to that temple. They're attached to the building. They're attached to the tradition. Their whole ancestry is a part of that temple, whoever the priest is. The priest is not some famous hoo-ha who wrote a book. No. The priest is often someone who's just assigned by the main office in Sotoshu. If they're lucky and a family hasn't passed on, as sometimes the generations fall. It's someone whose ancestors have been the priests of that temple for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, many generations. So there is this very physical sort of connection to the temple and even to the priest. Absolutely physical, because in all of the temples I've been to in Japan, they're surrounded by graveyards, just like churches in the West, of ancestors going back and back and back and back. And so those families, that Danka, takes care of that temple and takes care of the memory of those ancestors. We don't have that here in the United States. We got Zen Temple down on, down on Laguna, and we move back and forth a lot because rent. And that's not good or bad. It's what it is. But in a sense, something of that connection comes with, when we develop, as we develop, I think is going to come. I've been to San Francisco Zen Center, and at the bottom of a staircase, there is a silhouette It's the silhouette of Suzuki Roshi, the founder of that temple. It's just a painting silhouette. Little ghostly. When I first saw it, I'm like, oh, kind of startled me. But there's a memory there. There's a memory as it's gone through, I don't remember the start date of San Francisco Zen Center, but there have been many that have gone through there and cared for that place, who were cared for in that place, and it starts. There are lots of things going on, but in a sense, if we take care of our temples, if we take care of our groups, that happens too for us. Thinking Great Tree, Teijo is our founder, our first generation, but we also have ancestors there, some of whom, not necessarily we would say traditionally ancestors, but I think some of you might remember them, and some of the children I know remember them. Myojo and Rebecca, Jan. Ask the kids about Jan. Ask the older kids about Jan, who used to, one of the people who used to take care of our in our children's retreats. They loved her to death. They're gone. They passed. You're wearing, if you've got one of our t-shirts, one of our tie-dye t-shirts, few of them might have been Rebecca's work, an artist who helped to screen print those shirts. And if you walk out in the garden, much of that was planted, tended, looked after by Myojo. Some of the I know some of my robes, and I got a kimono and a samue that was sewn by Myojo, a very, very skilled seamstress. Some of those things that we sold during our craft sale were there, and some people are walking around wearing them. We don't have a graveyard. They're not buried in our space, but they are deep, not just in our history. It's already begun. This is Karatagiri Tomoe Sensei, who came to our sewing retreats for Jukai for many, many years, even starting before Great Tree, we even had Great Tree, who taught us to sew our Raksus and eventually to sew Okesa. The sewing book, the sewing instruction book that we used every year, that's Tomoe-san. We've already begun. It's already happening that with the Danka in Japan automatically does and has done for traditions for years. Here's our tradition. They're not stones outside, but they are maybe less touchable, but not exactly. and we're still building. You know, we are having ancestors arise every day at Great Tree. Some of the, artwork that if you come to the temple, you see every day. Some of the pots and pans in those cabinets out there, given to us by Renee, use them every day, helping to build that temple, that space with generosity and intent. It's there. It's happening. You and I, our ancestors, we haven't figured out what that would be. I mean, not something to figure out, but we don't know how that will be. But yes, and that's part of not just maintaining a building, but building Sangha, building, manifesting real Sangha and real temple. That building is not going to last forever, that some of y'all get to sit in. It's not going to last forever. It doesn't have to. What will is our practice, is our path, will be there. So that's what I mean by temple. And I know it doesn't really, form in the way that, the concept of temple is. I don't know, just a concept. But the reality of our practice is Sangha. The whole of practice, said the Buddha, is Sangha. Sangha friendship is showing up for each other. It's coming in and cleaning the temple. That is Sangha. And what does that do for us? What does that do for you as a layperson? What does that do for me as a priest? The other interesting thing about Western Sangha, particularly here in the United States, is there aren't a whole lot of priests, as I said. There's only a few of us. Probably doesn't need to be much more, really, I don't know. But part of what has happened in the American Sangha because of that lack of priests is that lay people do a lot of things that in Japan you wouldn't do because the priests do it. Lots of things like ringing the bells, being doan, being Ino, being Tenzo. Tenzo is a big fat deal in Japan. Tenzo is a what do you call it? A high position in a temple. Not everybody gets to be Tenzo. At Great Tree, you walk in the door. Can you be Tenzo? We do it. And in a sense, we take away, because it's doesn't make it doesn't have the same need as it does in a traditional Japanese temple. And a lot of in the hierarchy, good or bad, is dropped because of that just practical need for people to do what they're available to do and can do in American temples. And that's not to say it should be disregarded. The same responsibility, the same attention, the same practice is needed whether you're doing it as a priest or whether you're doing it as a layperson. It doesn't matter. For example, and really, we have a great opportunity as lay people in United States at Great Tree or other places to do it like this. It's an opportunity to, as I said, drop body and mind and completely immerse in practice, same as when you're on the cushion in the Zendo. It's that opportunity to put that devotion into, whether it's just the task of ringing a bell or cleaning up the kitchen, whatever it is. And it's something that we have the opportunity to transmit into our lives and to, I don't know, flatten that thing. You know, very often in this society, spiritual practice is like a side thing. You know, we're so busy, you know, taking care of our Saha world because that's what everybody tells us is important, that spirituality gets put to the side. You know, even running a Zen center, and hate to be harsh, for some people becomes a side hustle. We won't get into that, but yeah, we have to be careful with that. The importance of being in the temple, showing up for zazen, showing up for sesshin, joining Teijo for ceremonies and all that it's very important. But in a certain way, it needs to be flattened out into our lives. We very often are trying to squeeze in zazen, squeeze in sesshin, you know, and we have to do this because kids got to be picked up from school, yeah. And no shade on that. It's just that how do we bring it into our lives? How do we bring the temple into our lives and the Sangha into our lives in a way that keeps us on the path, regardless of whether we're monks or lay people? You know, how does that transmit? How do I say this? When someone gets assigned to be Doan or Jisha, say Jisha in the temple. Jisha is a pretty important office in the temple as well. Jisha kind of is accompaniment to the teacher, to the priest. You know, you carry the incense up to the altar, and there's a little bit of form they have to do, and there's, you know, some reverence to it, because you're not just doing it for the teacher. You're not doing it to be seen. You're doing it to make the ceremony, morning service, whatever it is, go smoothly, just as a part of it. And learning to do that is, you know, is important. It's important in a specific way. And so, as lay people, as a lay person, I had the opportunity to do that. As a priest, I have an opportunity to do that. It's the same form. It's the same intention. It's the same learning. And, you know, everybody gets nervous when they get to be Jisha. You know, it's kind of a nervous thing because you're in front of the Sangha and there's a form that you got to follow. And, you know, you don't want to drop the incense and, you know, miss Teijo's hand and drop the incense and all that kind of stuff. That's, you know, that's there. That's what it is. Yeah. And so we're very careful. You're very respectful to Teijo when you go up to the altar, and very quiet. You know, Jisha is a very quiet sort of movement and position. You're not doing Jisha to be seen, even though you're standing up there with the teacher, you know, and everybody's looking at you. You know, they're not supposed to see you. Even though you're in full sight, it's a very sort of humble position. Not humbling, but it's a humble position. You just do it and you step away. But you do it with attention. You do it with preparedness. You do it with, you know, making sure everything is there. So that Teijo can do what she needs to do smoothly at that altar, and then you step away and totally disappear. It's not about you. It's about service to Teijo and via Teijo, the whole of the Sangha, the whole of the assembly in that room as we move into our ritual. Now imagine if you went to the store and were being served by, you know, someone, and they gave you that same kind of attention and gave that same kind of devotion into that encounter. Imagine if I'm in the store and I gave that same kind of devotion and attention to whoever it is I'm serving. Can you imagine how that encounter would go if it were done for everyone that came into that store, for everyone that stepped onto the bus? That is what this practice is leading us to. It's transmitting. You know, lots of people don't like to do ritual. The ritual is there in a sense as practice for our lives. If you're the Tenzo at Great Tree and you're doing all this, serving all this at, you know, at Sesshin, all the bowls out correctly and so on, quietly, not very quietly, because all of our stuff is kind of ceramic and clinky and clunky. And, you know, you have to go and serve the Buddha tray as the Tenzo, you know, before the meal. You go in and you take, you know, the tray laid out correctly, clean and in the right place. And you go to the altar with the Buddha tray and do those bows and, you know, smoke it. I say smoke. I don't know. I forget. There's a term for it where you take the tray and you rotate it over the incense and set it down. Yeah. There's attention in that. There's devotion in that. There's intent. There's gratitude in all of that. Not to a Buddha statue, but to all beings. Because in my mind, that's what that statue represents. You know, it is all beings, all of the Buddhas, past, present, and future. If you've ever experienced that, if you've done that at Great Tree or any other place, what happens when you get home? You know, is it the same for that little plate of fish sticks and ketchup? Um, I'm remembering this because I had a little cousin that I had to take care of sometimes, and before I went to Great Tree. That's what we did, fish sticks with ketchup. Do I place that little plate in front of him with that same reverence, that same devotion? Can we? Even though I know he's going to get ketchup all over the table, yeah, whatever, because that's the world. Doesn't matter. Non-attachment, non-attachment. But do it. And that's the temple. And it's not taking the temple with you. It's not joining the Sangha on Tuesday. It's being always in the temple with the Sangha. That's why this practice is so important. That's why your engagement with the Zen Center, the temple, Great Tree, is not a Tuesday night affair. Tuesday, we get to, you know, step a little into a sort of, not really, monastic container for an hour and a half or for a weekend to experience it and remember how it feels, and to do it a little bit outside of the samsaric pressures that we are always under all day long, every day, and as lay people, as priests, doesn't matter. And that's the gift of temple and Sangha. And that's why we have to show up for each other as often as we can. That's why it's important, if we can, and if it's possible, because it's not always possible, to not just volunteer to come in and do Tenzo, but to really be Tenzo for that day, if we can. Doesn't matter whether you can cook. Nobody's asking you to be, I don't know. You don't have to be the cordon bleu chef. You just have to pay attention. You have to pay attention, and you have to have the intention of feeding someone, of feeding not just someone, but your Sangha. Doesn't matter who they look like. Doesn't matter if you're going to see them next week. Doesn't matter if you never see them again. Always to pay that attention and give that practice there. And to have it so much a part of consciousness, and have it so much a part of your body, when you're doing these practices in the temple, if you've done them like years and years and years and years and years, whether you've done it in a monastery, you've done it, just hanging around Great Tree, it becomes part of your body if you let it. If you stop worrying about it, and just do it. If you just pay attention. Yeah. Bells are complicated, doing the bells for the for the ceremonies. You're gonna get it wrong. It's gonna be wrong for years. Oh God. I know. How many times has Teijo thrown me that look over her shoulder that about burnt me away? And you gotta deal with that. Takes years, but it doesn't matter how wrong or right it is. It's that we come with intention, with you know, with concentration, with attention, with compassion, and understand that we do it for the whole Sangha. Understand that we do it for the people we work with every day, whether we like them or not. You don't have to like them. We do it for little cousin in this, even though he's going to get ketchup all over the table, it doesn't matter. He's 5. It's okay. We do it for, our Sangha brethren in Ohio, in Bloomington, in Nova Scotia, in Beacon, wherever we are, we're doing it. That's temple. That's Sangha. And, I try to, it's hard to convey this. Is not a concept, because it's not a concept. It's a reality that we have to approach and make effort to, to actualize in our practice all day long, every moment. It's all opportunities to be there. And so, I don't know if that made any sense to anybody. I talk too long. I always do. So, as much as you can, you show up at the Buddha Hall, you show up at Sesshin as much as you can with that full intention that it's not something special, that this is a part of my life, this is a part of my existence that I need. And it doesn't have to be a great tree. The encouragement is not just to be in a particular place, though we do want you there. Wherever you are, find the others of the Mahasangha, and become a part of the assembly, become a part of the practice, become a part of the life the Buddha has told us is ours. It's possible for anyone, anywhere, anytime. Don't need special, arrangements. Don't need a ticket. Just get on. So if anybody has any questions, anybody wants to add or correct, thank you for listening to me.
We're a little bit over time, and I personally need to leave. But if people want to stick around and ask questions, I can maybe make Chimio, I can make you the host, and people could
Sure.
stick around. Does that sound okay?
Sure, that's
Okay.
fine. I think I understand
Um,
how to do that.
okay.
Go ahead.
Make you the host. And then
Thank you,
if you
Quinn.
could also, oh, thank you very much. If you could also maybe lead giving back the merit at the very end, I would also appreciate that as well.
Okay,
Okay. But thank you so much, Chimio-san.
thank you. Any questions? Or let me see if I can. It's something kind of weird. Wait, let me see, because I can't see everybody. She has it on, I think. Yes, Martha.
Hi, Chimyo. Thank you for the talk. I really enjoyed it. And I feel,
Thank
yeah,
you.
it's such a valuable practice to be able to bring that kind of devotion into everyday life. And so I'm wondering if if you have any like tricks that you use to help yourself live that way. Um, or if it's just something that you kind of let happen like as time goes on and you practice and it just sort of like you're saying, like it becomes a part of your body. But yeah, I'm curious to know if you have any little tricks or anything that you use.
Sorry, hon. There's no tricks.
Okay.
There's no tricks. There's no shortcuts.
Uh,
Um, Basically, it's just showing up and taking it and continuing practice relentlessly, just as much as you can. Sometimes you got to put it down. Yeah. It's not about hurting yourself. It's not about feeling, feeling bad, but it's about discovering, you know, those places where maybe you haven't given attention. It's about seeing it. Um, and once you see it, if you have compassion, if you have real care about the world, address it. Mm. Um, I'll give you an example. One of the good things about being in monastic practice for me and being in monastic practice with the community is realizing my own really, really bad stuff. I was in community in Japan in a what's called an ango practice period for 3 months. And you're in the practice period for 3 months with some people that, oh my God, and it's like you ain't have to like them, but you got to take care of them and they take care of you. And I was doing service, food service at one time. It's very, very uh, formal and all that. So I'm carrying a great big pot of soup. And there was this one woman who, yeah, she was kind of a bully. And she was actually bullying, I felt, someone else. And in my self righteousness, when I got to her, she gave me this look. It was so, she was so angry with me and whatever. And she's about to tell me what I'm doing wrong in the middle of this, ritual practice, you know. So, right or wrong, that's what she did. I had this great big old hot pot of soup, and all of a sudden it was up here. She's sitting, I'm up here and leaning a little bit forward. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to Japanese jail. And I said, get down, you know. Now, if you ask me that about myself, if that violence was there, if that anger was there, if I could get to that point, I'd have told you, oh no, I'd never do that. Sometimes you got to see it and catch it before you go to Japanese jail. And it's kind of a joke because it's a joke now, but I didn't know myself. And I saw that part of me, and I was, forget embarrassment. I was, I'm like devastated. Oh my God. It's like, how could I do that? What would I have, not necessarily what did other people think of me, you know, because apparently nobody said anything and everybody got real quiet around me for a little bit. you know, I'm 4'11". I was the shortest thing in there. But anyway, but yeah, and part of this practice as a community, you see your crap, you see your bullshit, and that's all you can do is to run up against it and see it because that's the obstacle. She's not my obstacle. You know, getting up in the morning and getting to, Zen, morning Zen is not my obstacle. It's right here. How else are you supposed to see that if you're sitting and avoiding it all of the time. And that's kind of what our world allows us to do. All the distraction, all the fear that we go through all day long of not being able to pay this, of not being able to get somewhere, of, am I dressed right? What's my hair look like? All that distraction, silliness, keeps you from really seeing the part that is what you need to touch and what you really need to feel, not about yourself, but to drop body and mind. And it becomes, so that dropping body and mind becomes a not so much permanent state, but a state that you reach more easily each time it comes up to you. You come up to it. You come up to that. And there's nothing to do that but practice. The trick is practice. The trick is sitting there, and find yourself a comfortable space. Don't break your legs, but, don't let your legs distract you either. Not letting, there's pain in your legs. Yeah, there's pain. Accept that. Look at it, and those states of mind that sometimes hurt people, are the same as that pain in your legs. You have to get past it. You get past it by understanding what it is. What's the reality of this? What is the reality? Why am I so angry? Why am I angry? Why am I not helping? And those questions will come up. And the lies that we tell ourselves come up. And it's painful. It's painful. But how do we move past it? How do we drop that body and mind? How do we drop that crap? Except to really see it for real. So there's no trick. The trick is, your dedication to the practice, whatever it is for you, your dedication to the truth, and seeing it clearly. And that doesn't help, and be careful of folks that want to, pass you a glass of Kool-Aid, because, that's not the little tricks, the little self-helps, all those kinds of things. There's lots of that stuff in this community, in the Zen community, as it is throughout, our culture. Be careful of that. It's not supposed to be easy. Not supposed to be easy. Healing is not easy. And sometimes not very comfortable, but it's possible. He said so. He said it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, I'm trying to think because my brain is not as I got so many things in my head that I can't remember the chant that we say for some reason right now. But it ends with "and bring peace." May the merit of this. But I'm going to go with "may the merit of this," if that's okay. Thank you so much for coming. Please, Great Tree is grateful for your support, however you support us. Just being here today is a support. It's support for Great Tree. It's support for the Sangha. And so please, you're welcome to come back anytime. So I'm going to do my version of it. May the merit of this wait a minute. I'm so that I was actually, wait a minute. You know what? Benefit. Please forgive me. I hate to use this excuse every time, but I did have brain surgery 2 years ago, so it's really hard for me to remember this. May the merit of this benefit all beings in all places, so that all beings everywhere can realize the Buddha way. And there's the sing-song one, but I cannot bring that up in my brain right now. But thank you again, and please take care of yourselves in this heat. Thank you.